So I'd like to go ahead and get our seminar started. So College of Engineering had our Oregon Stater Awards last night. We're very honored to have one of our awardees available to give a presentation for us. Patricia Walsh is a graduate of 2006 from our computer science program. She has found a bug in one of Microsoft's programs, won the Microsoft Gold Star. She's a world-class athlete. And she's also an advocate for children, where she's living in Texas. And is also a motivational speaker, which tonight is couldn't resist having her come and give an opportunity to speak to our college community here at Oregon State. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, thank you all. It's wonderful to be here. There's nothing like coming home. And when I went to Oregon State, having a visual impairment, so I'm blind. I don't see out of my right eye, and I've never seen out of my right eye, and I see just a little bit of light out of my left. When I came to college, it was pretty dicey. There was a lot of my professionals in high school and even members of my immediate family that were really trying to discourage me against enrolling in university because in their terms they thought it would be an exercise in failure. And what's the value in spending all this money when we know that you're not going to be able to graduate? And the unfortunate truth is, at the time, I didn't have any evidence to refute that point. I wasn't a particularly strong student. I didn't particularly have a great grasp of technology. I hadn't really yet learned how to advocate for myself and how to get the things that I needed. All I really knew and all I really could substantiate was where I wasn't where I wanted to be. And I had a general sense and a general belief that I could do more with my life than collect disability insurance, which is where I was being pushed at the time. So I came to Oregon State really against the judgments of my professionals and my immediate family, kind of, let's just say, on a wing and a prayer. And before I even start, there are some people in the room who are tremendously helpful to me, and I will never be able to express my gratitude fully, because I can honestly say when I started university at Oregon State, there wasn't one person who was certain this was going to work out, and that includes me. I was not certain this was going to work out. But I knew it would be better for me long term to have tried and to have made an attempt, and if it didn't work out, we're no worse off than we were. So I have a lot of professors and a lot of people who were tutoring me, and it really did take a village. They had to really bring me up to speed on what is accessible technology, where are the services that are available, where are the tutoring services that are available, and really there was so many people were there to help me. And I'm so grateful for that. I went on, I left Oregon State. I worked at Microsoft for about 7.5 years and had a successful career there. While at Microsoft, I was dared by a friend to do an Ironman. And for those of you who don't know, Ironman is a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and a 26.2-mile run. So it's 140.6 miles total. And I took this dare, which I don't know if I would do in hindsight, and I did my first Ironman, and that started me on a career of triathlon, which really came out of the blue. So while at Microsoft, I completed my first Ironman, which I became the first blind female to have completed an Ironman with a female guide. So the way that works is with my vision, I have someone with me who is athletically on par, and they kind of are the vision, and theoretically, we both are the power. And so it's a little bit of a teamwork experience. So that was a remarkably exciting experience for me. At the time, I was working full-time at Microsoft. I was actually doing a graduate program at Seattle University, and I was training for Ironman. So needless to say, I was kind of ready to give something up. So after my first Ironman, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, I walked to the gym, my first time walking to the gym, and I walked in, and I turned right back around, and I went back home because I wasn't having it. Out of the blue, I got a call from a lady. She's a hero of mine. She's a professional athlete, and she wanted to do a second Ironman with me, or a second Ironman. Second for me, but it was a publicity thing for her, and she was very excited as a professional female to be guiding a blind athlete. So because she was a hero of mine, I really dropped everything, took a term off of university, and really focused up on that. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to make it However, I was able to find 2 backup guides. So in the spring of 2011, I actually became the world record holder for blind and low vision Ironman distance triathlon for blind males or females. So I beat the female record by about 4 hours, and I beat the male record at the time for 55 minutes. After that, I was still at Microsoft, and I was all of a sudden getting a lot of opportunities to do public speaking, and at a professional level. So I started pursuing public speaking. I left Microsoft to do that. After about 8 months of that, I got a little bit bored because my whole career was just me talking about myself all the time. So I ended up at a startup that did social entrepreneurship, and we were trying to make financial services available in the developing world, which was a remarkably exciting mission, and I was so pleased. I was there up until very recently, and unfortunately, we all know 80% of startups fail. However, when you're in the 80%, it's really surprising. We know 80%, but we're not in the 80%. So that was a real shock. What I have up here, so what I learned in my time at Oregon State, first and foremost, was it really did take me a village. So I learned a lot about what it is to request help and to be a little exploratory, do a little trial and error of what's going to work for you and what's not. I have since competed internationally. I've competed on 5 continents in the sport of triathlon. After I got my world record, I was recruited by the U.S. national team to represent the United States on Team USA. And I really know no greater honor than wearing my country's uniform. It really has instilled a sense of patriotism and being proud of being American. And I understand now it's challenging given a political landscape that is uncomfortable. And all the same, I'm proud of the legacy that we have, and I'm proud of the future that we have. Nervous of the present, but I'm proud all the same to be American. Competing for the United States was remarkably exciting. I have my first international race was in Beijing, China, where I won a bronze medal. I then competed in New Zealand. I have a bronze medal in World Championships. So I have 3 international bronze medals, 5-time U.S. national champion, the 3-time continental champion for North and South America, and I was the representative for Paralympics. What we do as athletes is there are competitions that are happening year-round. So the picture you see here is really a testament to a willingness to do trial and error and a willingness to make things work. So what ended up happening was my guide and I had flown to a race in Magog, Quebec. So we had to fly into Montreal, and it's a 2.5-hour drive south to get to this race. Well, unfortunately, our baggage didn't make it. So we were trying to just brainstorm every manner of how are we going to do this race without our equipment. So I have a 20-pound carbon fiber custom-made tandem bike. We rented a beach cruiser that's like an 80-pound beach cruiser. There are specific rules about what are the uniforms you can wear. So we went and we read the rules, which I'd never read. And there's things about logos and this size, and it has to have your name. So we got swimsuits, and we're puff painting on them in our hotel room to just exactly to a T make it such that we could race. We didn't have our cycling shoes, so we got tennis shoes, and we had duct tape, and we did several rounds of duct tape to our beach cruiser. We're ready to. We have flown to Magog. We are going to compete. Well, sure enough, our bike shows up at 8:30 in the morning for a 10 o'clock race. So we are in this mad dash. So we ended up, we're in a French-speaking part of Quebec, so we ended up driving to a bike shop before they open. I am putting my bike together in their parking lot, and as they pull up, they're speaking French, and we're trying to mime to them that I'm a blind person. This is a tandem bike. And this is now your emergency to respond to because this is your problem now. And we're in a hurry, and this is your timeline. So we got the bike together, a lot of miming and confusing communication. And by the end of it, all the bike mechanics, this French-speaking bike mechanics, had no idea what we were doing. They came and cheered us on. So we had a whole crew, and they brought their friends and family. We discovered after we put the bike together that it did not fit in our vehicle. So what we chose to do was we put the front seat down flat as it could go, and we put the back seat down flat, and we decided the back door would just stay open. And I laid down, and we put the bike on top of me. And I held the bike, and then my guide decided to buckle the seatbelt over top So she said if we got pulled over, we'd just claim that we were trying to be compliant with the laws. I don't know. So we get there at about 9:59, and they're about to close down the check-in. And I said, Claudia, follow my lead. So I went, and the lady who's like actually going to close the actual barrier, I give her a sort of hug, but it's sort of a restraining hug, like you can't now move forward. So Claudia moved in the bike behind while I'm embracing an official. And thank God we actually did win the race and we did get the points. But it was really a testament to, you want to be prepared and you want to be ready for anything, but there's so much value in being flexible and adaptable. There's value in seeing something to the end. There's value in a belief that this may or may not work out, but we are going to do our best effort and keep pushing forward. I did have the opportunity to compete in Rio de Janeiro. There was really an interesting, so I was in Paralympics, and there was a beautiful quote that I love to leverage, and that is, Olympics is a testament of what the human body can do, but Paralympics is a testament of what the human spirit can do. And from a technologist point of view, what was remarkable to me was having athletes of varying disabilities who are competing at a very high level. Paralympics is very competitive, and a lot of athletes are coming with a real wide variety of technologies. You think of prosthetic legs. From the US, we have carbon fiber legs, we have biking legs, there's support in the US. However, it's still not where it should be. But you've got people coming from the third world that have legs that they've handcrafted out of materials. And they're competing at a high level, and it's just awe-inspiring. My dad made the trip. I don't know where you all are in phases of life, but I will say, I don't know if I realized this when I was in college, but as we grow older, you realize you never really outgrow wanting your parents to be proud of you and wanting your family to be with you. And it was really, it's one thing to have the accolades of the various races I've won, but having my dad present to watch, even if my race did go a little sideways in Rio, really made the experience. And for him, oh my God, he had the time of his life. No one had more fun than John Walsh. After leaving Oregon State, I went on to have a very successful career at Microsoft. I did find an issue in the click tracking of online advertisement, so I did win a Gold Star Award. So that was a pretty inspirational day in my life, because I didn't know that would, if I'm being completely candid, at the time, so I started as a software development and test engineer, so I was doing coding toward a test environment, later moved into a technical program manager role. At the time when I did this, based on separation of duties, was not supposed to be in the code. So I went a little rogue, checked the code out, fixed the issue that I saw, checked it back in, hoped and prayed I wasn't going to get fired, and kind of was hoping that would go on the radar. And then sure enough, because it was a rounding error, so because they did notice it and did make the correction, we did recover a lot of revenue. And so I came into work one day, and out of the blue, I had an award and a check for $10,000. So I was so thrilled. And I called in sick the next 5 days. I bought a ticket to Hawaii. I went straight from work to Hawaii that day. And so I had a really good time. So I won a Gold Star Award while at Microsoft. I grew quite a bit in the bigger corporate environment. After leaving Microsoft and being a startup, I think I grew a lot in my sense of agency and my sense of what I believe is possible. After winning the world record, I did have the opportunity to write a book, Blind Ambition. I've since been featured in over 40 publications, including Success Magazine, Bellinic, of course NPR, and many more. So it's been a really exciting trajectory since having left Oregon State. Winning the world record was a really interesting experience. I did not set out to win a world record. So because the guide I trained to race with, because she wasn't able to compete with me, I had to find 2 backup guides because it was 140 miles, and I was trying to go at a pretty competitive pace. So for me, swimming has always been a real battle of anxiety because I have a little bit of light perception on my left eye and I have nothing on my right. Once my head's in the water, I can't hear or see. It's total disorientation. So I can't tell you where shore is. I can't tell you up or down. It's really remarkably confusing. And as you might imagine, it's kind of common sense to feel some anxiety in that situation because you think, you're going to die. I don't know what I'm going to do out here, right? So So also when you're doing Ironman, the next picture is of the swim, and that's 2,000 people are doing the same thing you're doing. So you're also getting punched and kicked, and it's kind of a combative sport. So it really is a mental game at that point, and a matter of you learning ways to manage anxiety while also propelling yourself through the water. So for my second Ironman, 2.4 mile swim, and my goal in the swim is to survive. We're trying to not die today. So I was successful in that, and I had a fine time. My time was I think 85 minutes for a 2.4 mile swim. 85 minutes is not right. Oh, that is right. Hour 15. Yeah. Anyway, so we did that, and then by the time we got on the bike, we had a pretty solid day on the bike. We did 112 miles in 5:30, and by the time I realized we had done pretty solid bike time, I really got it in my head that I wanted an Ironman time under 13 hours, which is a pretty competitive Ironman time. And I think so some adrenaline came over me. I was a little bit ahead of myself, and I had my guide switched out from the bike to the run, and I had a lady who I love very dearly. She could be a little chatty, and I was a little stressed out. So the very, very first thing I said to her, and excuse me, I shouldn't say that. The very first thing I yelled at her, which is inappropriate, is I said, we don't talk. I was like, we talk about pace and we talk about mile markers, but we're focused, like we do not talk. And I was pretty rude to someone who's trying to help me, which was really not my best moment. So then as we were running, I realized my mistake, and I'm trying to apologize, and I'm trying to say, how are you? How was your day? I'm really sorry that I did. I just really was caught up in the moment. And she says, no, we don't talk. So we go through this, and she's telling me pace, and she's telling me mile markers, and the way that the Ironman Texas is set up is it's a 3-lap course, so you get a lot of spectatorship. So as we're going, I'm hearing people cheering, and I'm hearing people are very excited, and I get the sense something's going on, but I didn't know what it was. So after maybe 2 hours into our run, or no, I think it was the last lap, we're in the very last lap, just out of enthusiasm for the fact this is about to end, I threw up my arm, just cheering. And as I did, the crowd erupted. And what I didn't realize that they knew before I did is I was actually on track to break the world record. So of course that was such a huge rush of adrenaline. I ran the fastest 5 miles I've ever run, and I think we finished at like a 6:30 pace or something like that. My guide was so out of breath, and she was trying to navigate me and communicate that she's just yelling, blind runner! So everyone's like, what does that mean? And then we were plowing people down, and we passed this guy who was a little bit of egomaniac, and he started crying when a blind runner passed him, and he was all upset. So I asked my friend Sonia later, I was like, why didn't you tell me? And she said, we don't talk. Representing my country and hearing the national anthem, there's nothing like it. What I really learned in the sport of triathlon is the value, and also what I really learned at Oregon State, was the value in nurturing your support network. There's no way I could have gotten to this level if I didn't have a lot of support from my family and all of my faculty and my staff here at Oregon State, and my fantastic guides. I have medaled in London, New Zealand, and Beijing, China, which has been very exciting. So one thing, since when I was asked to do this, particularly at Oregon State, I was thinking to myself of what are the things that I wish I had known when I left university. And one of the biggest struggles that I'm having today, and that I've continually had, is in industry, there's no such thing as having disruptive technology on a small scale. And you can't solve big problems on your own. If you're going to solve those disruptive problems and really be that innovator in technology, you have to learn to work with other people. And if you're really going to get to that next level of your career, it has everything to do with learning to see the strengths in others. And I remember in college, and I don't know if any of the students can relate to this, but that group work was always one of the most frustrating and most cumbersome pieces. But what I know today, as someone who's been in industry for over 10 years, is that really figuring out how to bring out the strengths in others and have a cohesive team is really how you get to the next level. I think that basic level, we all leave with a pretty fundamental understanding of technology. So, if you work alone, you're going to solve problems on a smaller scale. You're going to be frustrated. You're not going to have that opportunity for growth. So painful though it may be, what I'm trying to practice now is really practicing every day those moments when you are frustrated with someone, when they to me, as someone who has competed on a high level, who is very driven, there are a lot of times where people seem really apathetic to me. And I'm learning that it's not really apathy. It can be miscommunication. It can be a wrong alignment of skill set. It can be all sorts of things. It can be fear. It can be fear of failure. It can be fear of success. It can be any kind of thing. And really learning to have empathy and compassion and awareness of how other people may operate a little differently, and things aren't always as they appear. And, you know, I joke, I have a cousin who I love dearly, and he gives great advice, and he tells me, you know, everyone has strengths. And my joke is, I don't believe it yet, but I'm repeating it over and over, and I hope to believe it someday. But I do believe it. I do believe it. And I'm willing myself to believe that, because we don't see the strengths in others, but they do have them. And the sooner we learn to nurture those strengths, the sooner we are elevating a team. And whether you're an individual contributor or whether you're going to go into management, being able to lift a team up and solve those bigger problems is how you realistically will advance your career. But that is easier said than done. But it's something we all need to understand. One thing that has been remarkable for me in the opportunity to speak at Oregon State is to have an opportunity to reflect on how far I've come. I had a brain tumor in 1986. I was sick, I was in the hospital for about 6 weeks, terribly sick. At this point in my life, when we looked to my future, there was a lot of cause for concern. You know, we didn't know if I would grow. We didn't know if I would get taller or need hormone therapies to grow. We didn't know if I'd be able to complete a high school education. We didn't know what I would be able to do. And people were treating me protectively, wanting to make sure that I didn't feel that sting of failure. And I, as long as I can remember, had just a gut feeling that that was not all that was meant for me. In 1994, I went to school for the blind for 1 year, and they took us on a career day. We got to remember the landscape of technology in '94 is not what it is in the 2000s when I went to college, and certainly not what it is in 2016, 17, which is where we are today. So I went on career day, and they took us to, there was a lady who was very similar vision to me, and she had very few real responsibilities. Her job was for 2 hours a day, she would answer the phone and dictate a message to someone, but once she dictated the message to somebody, that person is now responsible. So the reality is, and even as a 14-year-old I saw, she's really a token, right? They can say we employ a blind person, but that person doesn't have any meaningful responsibilities, and she's not really there. So I'm so proud of her for doing what she could with what she had available and for really achieving, but I knew that wasn't what I wanted. And it was a little disheartening that that was my shining example of a success story. So when I went through high school, I really pushed to have a better education, and at the time, they, thinking they were offering me a kindness, were excusing me out of math classes and excusing me out of science classes and giving me credits and things that I didn't deserve and didn't want, and I really had to push back to say, if I don't have these classes, I will then be ill-prepared for university. And they were like, well, yeah, but university's not for you. I'm like, well, let's make it for me. Let's see what we can do here. And it was really an uphill battle. And truthfully, the people who were deterring me, they thought I was experiencing some denial of my situation and some denial of my limitations. And I just had a real sense in my backbone that your perception of my limitations aren't substantiated either. My belief in my potential is not substantiated. So neither of us have a solid point. So let's go my way. When I went to Oregon State, it was really a matter of reinventing my future and reinventing what I believe is possible. I was uncertain. I was insecure. I was really just on a battle of proving to myself what I'm capable of and proving to myself what my worth is. And when I think back of what I experienced in college and in truth, kind of what I put myself through, I think of working at the engineering lab and walking home at 3 a.m. and then turning right back around and coming back and doing it again. We lived on airport, so I'd walk 2 miles home and then come back 2 miles, and I didn't think anything of it, and I'm telling you, I would never do that now. So I think of the ways that I've changed since I left Oregon State and the ways that we mature and the ways that we grow. There's an expression I love, and I repeat it to myself almost every day, and that is that confidence is a sensation you have, before you're really fully aware of your situation. And and it's true. I left Oregon State with a lot of confidence. I have less confidence today. I have more self-awareness. I went to Microsoft, and I was feeling very accomplished. And I had a belief that I could outwork anybody. I never believed I was the smartest. I never believed I was the best in technology, but I believed I had a work ethic that I could hold my own in any industry. When you leave university, I think you get a better sense of how truly competitive our industry is. Once you leave, university is a pretty wide range of skill sets, and as we get further in, you get more and more people who have the skill sets and are driven and are really dedicated to what they're doing. But every level you climb is a big leap. Just the same way that a high school athlete is different than a college athlete is different than a pro athlete. Those are very different. When you go out into the real world, you're competing on a global scale. So what I have noticed is that throughout my career, my ambition has stayed the same. My confidence has changed as I've become more aware of the competition and the true investments you have to make in your technology skill set. You really have to be a lifelong learner now and do project-based education and take advantage of all of these online resources that we have. Technology is ever changing. You want to be in those opportunities to grow. And there's this thing that as athletes we talk about called a growth mindset. And there's a really great book that if any of you are going to read, it's called Mindset, I believe it's called Mindset, The Science of Success. And it's talking about the difference between the belief that we're born the way we are and all of our aptitudes with us when we're born, or the belief that we grow. And you grow by finding opportunities to challenge yourself. So for example, recently someone told me that they're usually the smartest person in the room. Well, that's confidence, right? That's a lot of confidence. That's maybe not a lot of awareness of your situation, because I'm not convinced he was even the smartest person in that room. So what I would say to that is that, if ever you believe that you're at the top of your level of competition, you need to find the next level. And you need to find what is that going to look like for you, and what is that going to push you. In having taken the opportunities, both as an athlete and in my professional career, to surround myself with people who I think have a stronger skill set, it has pushed my skill set to run to keep up. And it's exciting. You end up going so much further than what you knew was possible. And the other thing I've noticed in my career is when I left college, I had a lot of confidence, I had a lot of ambition, but I think I was a little low on what is my purpose and what am I trying to do here. And I was really at a point where I wanted whatever job is the job that has the most money, well, that's the job I'm going to go to, right? And you get in this mode of you think that's where your security is going to come from. Now that I've been in my career for 10 years, it's more important to me than ever to feel good about the technology I work on, to feel like I'm contributing to a bigger problem, like I'm excited about what I'm doing. And the money will come. If you feel like there's purpose in what you're doing, you feel like you're growing, and you feel like you're having opportunity to develop new and interesting technology skill sets, but you feel good about the technology and you have a genuine, sincere passion for it, the growth will be there and the money will come with the growth. So that's a little bit of a change as I've been in career for a little bit longer. One of the great blessings in being an Olympic athlete is the opportunity to meet your president. And I was always a big supporter of Obama, and it was a great honor to meet him. I, however, didn't handle this situation as well as I had hoped. And I guess, again, it was an occasion of my own confidence that I thought that I had composure. And I thought that, generally speaking, I have a grip on my emotions, generally speaking. So I was under the impression that we all, as athletes, would get the opportunity to shake the president's hand and say thank you for your service, and that we'd kind of be rushed through. And wonderful surprise, but also unexpected. We got a couple minutes of FaceTime, and I shook the president's hand, and I told him I'd always been a big supporter. And then there was a lack in the conversation, and I panicked completely. So I asked the President of the United States to play basketball with me, and let that sink in for a second. And he said, oh, do you have moves? And I said, no, I don't. And I think what's unspoken between the president and myself is, why did you bring this up if you don't have moves and you don't play basketball? So I kind of inadvertently asked the president of the United States to coach me in basketball. And so then a little bit more awkward conversation. And then I went and I hugged Michelle Obama, and by then I was emotional. I'm a big fan of Michelle Obama. And I just kept repeating over and over, I'm so proud of you, I'm so proud of you, I'm so proud of you, I'm so proud of you. And she's saying, I'm proud of you. I'm like, no, listen, I'm proud of you. I just can't, it's a meltdown happening. There's a meltdown happening. And then by the time the third in line was Joe Biden, and he put his hand on my face and he said, I'm proud of you. And I was in tears at that point. So it kind of hit my low moment there. So my next slide is I tracked the data of my perception of my behavior versus my actual behavior, and then my realization of my behavior. In the moment when I'm asking the president of the United States to teach me how to play basketball, I thought, this is going really well. My perception of the behavior is, this is going great. The president and I are having a great time here. You know, this is going to be a great conversation for the president. I don't think I realized. And so about 20 minutes after speaking to the president, it kind of hit me that was a very strange thing to do. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I've read all the books. I volunteered on his campaign. I was like, why didn't I bring any of that up? Like, why basketball? Since I don't play basketball. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you're an intelligent woman. Like, why did you say that? And then I had a deeper level of introspection, and I'm saying to myself, are you really that intelligent? I was like, is that something you've heard other people say? So I spun out on that for a little bit. So what you can see is the line that is my awareness. My awareness was very, very low, and then it just hit me like a brick. This maybe didn't go as well as you thought. The line in red is my actual behavior. Pretty steep decline. So it's been so exciting to have the opportunity to come and speak at my university. And what I did want to do is just take an opportunity to answer any questions, particularly if we have any students that are going in the workforce, on some of the things that I've learned and ways that maybe I could be of service. So if we can have opportunity to answer some questions. But speak up. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And one thing that I forgot to mention, and Scott mentioned earlier that I'm a court-appointed advocate. I used to have a slide in here, and unfortunately I don't have it now, but I did have an opportunity to meet Bill Walton. And for my lack of basketball skills, I actually am a pretty big basketball fan. And I met Bill Walton, and he's a remarkable celebrity. So there was 400 people waiting to speak to him. And when you're speaking to Bill Walton, first of all, it's like this. He's 7'2". And he's looking right at you, and it's just you and he having a conversation. He does not acknowledge that there's a bunch of people around. I had a 20-minute conversation with Bill Walton about the value of volunteerism. And I always have been an avid volunteer. And I spoke to earlier about younger in my career, purpose was less valuable to me. But as I grow, purpose is more and more valuable, because that's your personal integrity, right? That's who you are as a person. And that's the gift you're giving yourself. So speaking to Bill Walton, he was telling me the volunteerism he does. And one thing that I've kind of rededicated myself to is to have that as part of my life, and everything that I do is that opportunity to give back to your community, because it puts everything else in perspective. When you are at a level, when you're trying to compete at a global level, whether it be my athletics or career, it's so easy to get caught up in what you're doing. And you want to be the best, but you're at this razor's edge. And it is important to grow, and it is important to improve. But the reality of, if you get to the 99th percentile, it's amazing. But getting to 100 is just so much harder. So it's making investments in those things that are your integrity and what define you as a human being, and what define you as a person who contributes. So today my volunteerism is I'm a court-appointed advocate, so in Austin, Texas, where I live. It's a national program. But any family that has court-appointed services, so it'd be abuse or neglect, they can have an advocate. And that advocate speaks to the children, engages with all the various educational professionals to make sure that they're getting all the services they need, someone who's consistent throughout the process. So I have 5 kids in the court system, and they have been a riot. And it's been a really exciting opportunity to help connect someone with services and make some meaningful difference long term. So one thing I learned from Bill Walton is that I will be a lifelong volunteer. So anyway.
Patricia, I have a question.
Yeah.
So for when you're at Oregon State, and it sounds like you came in with a lot of confidence, where I'm just kind of, I'm wondering, as you went through, was there a time that you figured, yeah, I am actually going to do this, you know, that you're going to?
Yeah. I came in, you know, I was very insecure when I came to Oregon State, and I think I had, I don't know if I could say I had a lot of confidence. I would say I had a lot of hope. I was very hopeful that this would work out. I was never certain that this would work out. I think, you know, I had my advisor here, Dr. Budd is here, and I think he had some belief in me and some willingness to take some chances on me, which that helped me a lot. I had Dr. Gardner in the physics department, and, you know, he really gave me a lot of very pragmatic advice on how to get through, but then also to see someone who was also blind, who was succeeding, you know, having what was realistically my first role model of someone who was successful with blindness, that gave me more hope. So I think the first couple years were really just fueled by hope. But I think my first moment where I had a sense that this could potentially be successful was when I had my first internship at Microsoft. And to go there and then initially feeling so outclassed because I didn't have the confidence yet, you know, and it is overwhelming, and the level of competition grows, and you realize how you might be good at what you do, but they're good at what they do too, and you know, you're there. But having some opportunity to really learn through experience and have a few successes in the workforce, that's where my confidence really started to grow. And then once I signed the contract with Microsoft and realized that I was actually going to be a person who was employed and have benefits and have income and have opportunity to contribute to big solutions. You know, I worked on Microsoft Outlook, which is something that people use every day and they know. That was a real turning point in my life, I think, because it was a moment where this hope became something that was more realistic and something that was more viable and not just a belief and something that had some substance to it. And that really got me on a different trajectory of, you know, before it was just a wing and a prayer, and now I felt like I had some more substance in it. It went from proving myself and proving what I'm capable to more of an excitement of just exploring what is that upper limit and what am I capable of doing with a little more momentum. Thank you.
I remember watching you when you lived here, crossing Monroe and crossing Harrison, and I'd see you on the street, and you always amazed me. You always acted like you were so confident.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I'm actually surprised that you never got run down by an electric car or something like that.
Oh, I've been hit by cars twice, actually. I've been hit by a car twice, yeah. Yeah, I know. I think there's a kind of an axiom I follow, and that is your behaviors come first and your emotions kind of catch up, right? So if you act confident, eventually that confidence will be true, you know? So, but there's a lot of moments even still where I'm uncertain of how things are going to work out, and particularly people come to me all the time and they'll say, well, how is a blind person going to do this? And I mean, my secret truth is I don't know either. So my answer, and you start to have to practice your answers, is always, there's always a way. So I don't know. You bring me a new, unique problem set, I don't immediately know how I'm going to solve that. But I have to certainly always exude the confidence that that there's going to be a way. As a person with blindness, I think the most difficult thing I face is knowing how different I am. People are uncomfortable. They don't know how to act. In some of the questions I get, I think they imagine what would I do if I went blind today. So for example, I was recently interviewing, because the startup fell apart, I was recently interviewing, and you know, I'm showing my resume and I'm showing that I'm an international athlete and I have a book published, and the questions they're asking me are, how will you use the restroom? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are you being serious right now? So, you know, my advice, and I think it is a little different, when you are a person with a disability, I think you have to have a little bit of a different presence. And I think that is really control the conversation. And so when someone is asking you questions that are inappropriate, the worst thing you could do is answer that question, right? Because you're setting the precedent then that this behavior is appropriate. So where someone else in an interview situation, I would say always be respectful. And I would say always be warm and engaging. And I think when you're a person with a disability, you maybe have to take a little bit more of an edgy approach and say, the way I always phrase it is, I'm going to answer the question as if you asked an appropriate question, and then you answer the question you want to be asked. I was like, you know, if you're asking me if I Can I do this job? Absolutely, I can do this job. They're asking me, what about if you get lost at the airport? And I say, well, if you're wondering if I could travel, the answer is yes, I can travel. But you really have to, they asked me, what about if there's a fast-paced meeting where people are sharing information on Skype and on a web bridge and on this and on that? And I say, well, that sounds like a disorganized meeting. And I said, if you put me in a confusing situation, I'll be as confused as my sighted counterparts. But I would love to come down there and coach you on how to better organize your meetings so that everyone can be more efficient. So I don't recommend this approach for everybody, but I think particularly for someone with any kind of physical impairment or any kind of impairment that people are aware of, you've got to be willing to push back a little and even be the tiniest jabby. And I'm not an inherently disrespectful person, but you almost have to get on that line to make them a tiny bit uncomfortable because they're well-intentioned, absolutely they are, but they sincerely don't know. And the unfortunate truth is we have very few people with physical impairments who are employed, and largely because of these issues, because there aren't a lot of examples out there. And it's one of these, which is chicken or the egg, are people not getting employed because the interview process filters people out and they're not, or are people getting filtered out because there aren't examples of people with disabilities who are successfully employed. So it gets tricky. But the statistics on blindness, I think it's between 18 of individuals with blindness, which is low incidence already. The individuals between 18 and 25, it's like 85% unemployment rate or something like that, which is really, if we're talking in the 90s with the technology in the 90s, I think that might have made more sense. But if we're talking now, every Apple product is accessible. All Windows products can be made accessible. Anymore, there's no reason why we would have a disproportionately higher unemployment rate other than the fact that technology's there, but society and systems have not caught up yet. And that's educational systems that aren't getting kids through high school prepared. And it's a general belief, societal belief, that people with disabilities are less capable. And that's what I run into all the time. So you almost have to come on with a a sort of a grandiosity that you may not really be feeling. I'm in that interview mad that they're asking me if I can use the restroom, but also cognizant of the fact that my startup just fell apart and I don't have income right now, right? So you're in this really kind of tricky area. And also you have to give people some grace. For me, I've met 1 billion sighted people and I've had them act strangely towards me 1 million times. So for me, it's sort of this compounding situation. But for them, this might be the first interaction that they've ever had in their life with a person who's different from them. And it's unreasonable to me to expect that they're going to know how to do that right away. There is a learning curve, and I need to be respectful and give them grace and opportunity to grow. So it's a really, for people with disabilities in professional environment, you're really balancing some delicacy around human behavior and how strange people can be. One of my favorite questions people always ask me is, what's your visibility? I'm like, well, my visibility is 100%. Like, I'm 0% invisible, If you're asking me what I see. So you've got to remember, trust in best intentions. I think for a person with a disability, that can be really challenging sometimes because it comes at you. I mean, it's like a fire hose all day, every day. I wait for the bus, I have a random person come try to put a quarter in my hand. I'm like, are you kidding me? But it's a matter of just remembering that people mean well. They're trying to help you. They genuinely do not know how to help you. And you've got to be willing to be a gentle educator and give them opportunities to do the right thing because they don't know. When I went to my first day of my new job, they had someone come in who trained them on how to interact with a blind person. And this person must have gone down a list of my pet peeves and educated them on how to annoy Patricia Walsh. So I walk in and they're in a conference room and he had told them that they should say, come to my voice, come to my voice, come to my voice. There's 8 people around a table going, come to my voice, come to my voice, come to my voice. I'm like, no, I'm going to go home now. I'm not doing this. So I had to, and when it's coming on real strong, I mean, it doesn't matter how patient you are. Everyone has their limit of what they can handle with patience and with grace. And I think you have to really learn to give yourself that little bit of time back to breathe and learn how to advocate for yourself and really trust that people mean well. People are really trying to help you. And so I had a lady my very first day, I was asking her where the bottles of water were, and this question was like total meltdown to her because she'd never interacted with a blind person before. And so she starts, the answer is no, there are no bottles of water, but we didn't get there. We didn't get there. So she started explaining to me where bottles of water are, and then explained to me where a water dispenser is, and then what it looks like in great detail. And then she explained to me how water comes out, and she explained to me what ice is, and if you use too much ice in a cup will be too cold. I'm like, oh my God. So this is like 10,000 words, and the answer is there are no water bottles. Strangely, later that same day, she asked me where I parked my car. So people may not get it right away.
So Patricia, so for the well-intentioned people that, like here at the university, there's a lot of our students, a lot of our faculty staff have never interacted or don't know how to interact. What advice would you have for us, kind of helping our students, be less clueless on how to...
Oh, yeah. No, it's a fair question, and I think, and to put it in perspective, I give people a hard time about, the strange questions I get as a person with blindness. But as an athlete in Paralympics, I had an opportunity to meet people with a wide variety of disabilities. And, to be really candid with you, when I meet someone with a new disability, I don't know how to handle it either. I meet someone, one of my closest friends is a wheelchair rugby athlete. And, when do you need my help? I don't know. So really, I would say the right way to do it is to say, how can I support you? At this level, now see, if you would ask me that when I came to Oregon State, I don't think I had a real answer for you because I'm learning as I go also. So I would, of course, I think the first thing to do is ask, of course, listen to the response. But then if that person doesn't have a solution, then we kind of move into like a problem solving. How are we going to do this? So we try to figure out like what is, what I need from people the most is explain the activity to me, and then we're going to come up with a couple solutions. We're going to try it, and if it doesn't work, we're going to abandon that as quickly as possible. I mean, when I remember taking physics classes, and that at first was so overwhelming because there was so much visual information. And, we tried having someone sit next to me and explain it to me, but as soon as I'm you can only hear one thing at a time. So as soon as someone's explaining something to me, now I'm not hearing what's going on in the lecture, so I'm losing information now. So what we ended up doing was we had a TA that I would listen to the lecture, and then 15 minutes after the lecture, with pipe cleaners of all things, he'd literally show me with pipe cleaners what are the visual representations going on. So it took a lot, but we probably tried 6 solutions before we figured out what happened. So I would say really just ask them how to be supportive, and then also be a little patient and be willing to try some kind of try some things that you maybe never tried before. Try a couple things. So anyway, I hope that answered your question.
I think our next class is coming in. Oh. Let's thank Patricia.